Hello, it's Dr. Roger Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, and I was asked recently by a patient the difference. What is sacroiliitis, or what is sciatica, and the methods of solving the problem, and that. So, what I'd like to do is actually differentiate between sciatica and sacroiliitis, because it's commonly misdiagnosed, and so you need to know what you're actually dealing with to know where those nerves are coming from and how are we going to affect those nerves so that they do their job. Whereas sciatica, if you have sciatica, it's a pain that's within the thigh. It's going to be a narrow band-like pain, kind of like a hot wire inside your thigh. And then it's going to be from the knee down, and I'm looking for pain and particularly numbness into the foot and toes. That's true sciatica. Many people, will say sciatica or even be diagnosed with sciatica, and it's not, because if the pain doesn't go past the knee, if it doesn't go into the toes, it's not from the sciatic nerve, and it's not from the lumbar vertebra. And usually that's a disc that is putting pressure on the nerve. Not to diminish the symptoms at all, because you can have debilitating sacroiliitis. But sacroiliitis comes from the sacroiliac, which is the dimple on the back of your back. It's where the sacrum and the pelvis come together. And these nerves go into your butt and thigh, and front, back, and normally you'll have pain in the rear end, pain in the thigh area, and often on the surface as opposed to a hot wire deep inside the nerve. So that's sacroiliitis. The sciatica comes from the lumbar area, and there's the nerves, and you can see these nerves. Go a little closer. You can see these nerves come out of holes called neuroforamina, which means holes, right, for the nerves to come through. Thank you, Captain Obvious, our wonderful anatomist. But here is a simulation of a disc protrusion, and it potentially could put pressure on that nerve, and then you're going to feel stuff going down the leg, and particularly into the foot, into the area where the nerve relates. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about sciatica. But the pain that goes into the butt and thigh, in any area of the thigh, is coming from these nerves. And you can see that's not a disc problem. That's not a lumbar problem. It's a mechanical issue in here in the sacroiliac area. Oftentimes these are significantly out of their mechanical alignment, and they're putting pressures, but also there are a multiplicity of imbalances of muscular activities, and we call it neuromuscular patterning, that are creating these imbalances that create pain. And so my job is not just to put the structure back together, which is my first specialty, but my job is to repattern the nervous system so that it functions to its design. I want to put the structure back to spec, but I also want to put the neurology back, kind of like in your car. You got your car and all the parts, but then you got the computer. I got to fix both of those problems, and particularly a mechanical problem isn't just a mechanical problem down here. It starts with a problem up here. And so we got to fix all of that by putting in sciatica. Things that we do that are different. They're going to go in and clip off that piece, and there are times where you got to have that done. I'm not disputing that one bit, but when they do that, they're going to improve the whole up to 25%. But imagine with me if you were to pump that disc up so that it moves away from the nerve. Even with the herniation, it can move away from the nerve by pumping it up. And that's just one aspect. We're going to work to pump that disc up, but we're also going to work to get it. Imagine if we've got it like this, we're putting more stretch on the spinal cord and brainstem, which we've talked about before. When you don't have the curves, or when you lose the curves in that lumbar area, it stretches the spinal cord and the nerve roots, and so it pulls the nerve across that herniation or the disc bulge. So the bulge is just I lost water out of the disc. So pump it up and say there are ways to do that, and that's my first specialty. So, but we instead of just clipping this off, we're going to pump the disc up. We can improve it by that hole size by up to 48%. Why? Because the disc is the major contributor to the height of that foramen, that hole. So then we're going to, like I say, put a curve in the lower back so that it takes any stretch off of those nerves. So that's how we deal with sciatica. Sacroiliitis, we're going to restore the mechanics of that sacroiliac position and function, but we're also going to put the mechanics back together neurologically so that it's run the way it's supposed to, so that the tones of the muscles are even, side to side, front to back, so that we don't have issues of you got a strong side. Like let's say peradventure that this side is strong and this side is weak, the stabilizers. So what do I do when I really have a problem? I up my activity. Well, this one can't up it, and this one can. So it ups it even more, which makes the problem even worse. Now it's hurting even worse. And so often patients will come in with pain in this area, and I'll put some kinesio tape, which causes an increase in tone in here, and it causes this to be less. That's interesting. How did that happen? Well, what it did was, by increasing the tone, we not only balanced it, but whenever we're tightening down a muscle on one side, we're inhibiting the muscle on the other side, which is even more difficult to do, because we got to teach that muscle not only to fire neurologically, but we also have to teach it neurologically to inhibit those muscles that are already stronger than the ones on the other side. And so my job is to put the whole thing back together again so that it functions at or near spec from not just an orthopedic point of view, but also from a functional neurological point of view, so that you can do things that you weren't able to do in the past. And we've already talked about that. We talked about one of my patients who called me 12 years later, and he was 2 failed back surgeries, and now he's riding 100-mile bike rides, races, and he's doing mountain biking and all kinds of other activities and things that he couldn't do before. And this is 12 years post care. He's still taking care of himself. And so he's still doing his molding and his weights and all the other activities that are causing him to be able to not just maintain what he's doing, but even optimize it. And so hopefully that gives you the answer. If you have any more questions about this, please ask. I love to come up with more videos, and sometimes we respond via email and that, but look forward to hearing from you. And we're here at Advanced Neurospinal Solutions when you're ready to take your life back. Thank you.